Hey boys and girls, so we got my first ever pro Mazda race today. As everybody should know, 2020 Season 1 started today at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is the car that I've been excited to drive for basically the past 2 weeks, ever since confirmed I knew I was going to get promoted. And as you can see from the start, I started 5th and kind of lost position into turn 2, and yeah, it was not the greatest start of the race. I just don't really have the confidence on cold tires like I should. It's not the end of the world, but I definitely want to be able to practice some more cold tire laps. And yeah, as you can see, just throughout the first 2 laps, everybody just starts really pulling away from me. No big deal though. I not spoil the ending, but I took 5th to end the race. It was a pretty hard race, but yeah, there was nothing too much about it. There was a pretty tight battle for a couple laps, but for the most part I was on my own, running away from everybody behind me. And that's all I gotta say for right now. Fast forwarding all the way to lap 13 now. Like I said, this was pretty much me running on my own. I was gaining on the guy in 4th place, and luckily for me, he spun somewhere on the track. I didn't really ever go back and look where he spun at, but luckily he spun out, so eventually here in this lap I end up catching him. But I also, there it is, he must have spun into turn 2. And I end up catching him, and this was a pretty big ego boost for me. I was like, okay, this dude's in 4th place and he's spinning out, so despite the fact that he's fast, there might be a chance for me to take 4th place here. But yeah, typical Matthew move going into the last turn. I won't spoil it too early, but he's starting to pull away from me a little bit, so I realized that I really need to start pushing. As hard as I can. I'm starting to lock the brakes a little bit, braking later and later into these turns, taking tighter apexes and trying to hold as much speed as I can. Like there, I barely even broke, but just got the apex royally wrong, and into the last turn, typical Matthew move, just nearly ruined my own race into the wall, but not too bad. I was about 7 seconds ahead of the guy behind me, so it's not the end of the world at all. This is going into lap 18, and I'm about 6 seconds on the guy behind me. Again, as you saw on lap 13, I spun and almost hit the wall, so I was taking it easy for a couple laps just to reset myself, and I lost about 1.5 seconds on top of the time that I had lost behind or from spinning. And now I'm starting to push again. I told myself this lap, I was like, okay, you settled down, you set 2 clean laps, and you're still starting to gain time back on this guy. You can do this. And another typical Matthew move, spun the car And in hindsight, had I locked the brakes earlier and spun, I don't even think I would have gotten past here. But I didn't, and here it comes. I get past. This turns out to be the best battle I had all race. But it's really just that because this guy wasn't blocking me. He was just really slow, so I was trying to gauge what turns I should actually make my move in. As you'll see right here, going into the last turn, I gained a crap ton of time on him, so I know he's not very confident under braking. And right here, I try to just sit in his slipstream as long as possible to give him a little bit of a, hey, I'm here and I'm gunning for this position, you know, just try to scare him. I faked to the inside here and then backed off just so that I wouldn't push anything, but unfortunately for me, he didn't run deep or anything, and I almost ran deep. But that's it. I mean, he gets a little bit of time on me, but I know that I'm faster than this guy. I mean, at one point in the race, I was 12 seconds ahead of him before I almost, or when I, not almost spun, but when I spun in the last turn in lap 13, and then when I spun in lap 18. Or, I don't think it was lap 18. I actually didn't look. It might have been 15 or 16. But every time, or every corner I go through, I'm starting to gauge, okay, this is where I might be faster than him, this is where I might be faster than him, you know, blah blah blah. And I'm trying as hard as I can to focus on running my lap with my points, and there you can see I ran over the curb because I'm trying to really get behind this guy. And right here again is when I really realized, I was like, this dude is just not confident under braking. So as long as I can run a clean lap, I can beat him under braking 100% of the time. So I backed off a little bit here going into turn 2, and I decided that, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't back off. He kind of slammed pretty hard on the brakes, and I just decided that I was going to try to set as clean of a lap as possible with speed here. And so then I backed off going into turn 3 and then just started really pressing him from behind. And as you can see, I'm gaining a lot of speed on him here, and since he's not confident under braking, I knew that there was nothing he can do about my attack through turn 5, and definitely nothing that he could do about my attacks through the kink. Unfortunately, I was worried that he was braking because on the last lap he did break into the kink, so I backed off a little too much, and I couldn't pull off the move this lap. And as you can see there, I'm really pushing my braking later and later and later. I even locked up going into the corkscrew. Didn't cost me too much time, but I'm just trying to gauge, like, I mean, I've said this a million times, but I'm trying to gauge where exactly the best spot to pass him would be. And he locks up going into the last turn, so I thought I would get a good run on him, but he just pulls away. So something to work on there is maybe a little more confidence in myself in the last turn. Sometimes I slow down a little too much. But here I just kind of catch back up to him a little bit going through turn 2. He almost runs wide, so he has to lift, whereas I have to lift leading into the turn. And that just makes it better for me, especially when he gets a poor exit out of turn 3 and out of turn 4. I'm just sitting in a slipstream, and going into turn 5, I decided, or I thought about something that my buddy Colin said, and he said I should always back off to give myself the best exit when I'm going for a pass, and that's what I did. And I backed off both times, and unfortunately he pushed wide, and I got a much better run on him through the kink. And I intended on just fighting him up the inside, but he backed off, so you can see I cut back to the inside, or outside, to get a better line, and that was pretty much it. That was the move done on him. No big deal. It was not that bad. I knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. I was faster than him through most of the course, and now that I'm past him, I really hunkered down, and this is when I set my fastest lap of the race. I was like, kind of embarrassed, because I was like, you know what, there's no way that this kid is gonna be able to get the opportunity to catch back up to me, and this is the lap that I set. As you can see, I set a 1:17.9, which is my fastest lap ever. It's about 2/10 off of what my optimal time was, and I was feeling great at that point in the race. I actually did a double take. I did not believe the spotter when he read the time that I actually ran. I was like, what? How did I do that? But yeah, that's how I pushed myself 3 seconds away in one lap, and that's it. That's the race. I set a clean last lap, or last 2 laps. This was lap 20, and took home 5th place in my first Pro Mazda race ever.